What is up, movie friends? Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost podcast. This is Anthony.
And this is James, and today we're going to be doing the original Pirates of the Caribbean, the first three movies, like the original trilogy. We like to pretend like 4 and 5 didn't exist.
No.
Outside of Javier Bardem's performances, of course, but
they're not awful. It's just these are the ones made by Gore Verbinski, the director.
yeah, these are the best ones. They're all amazing movies. I know a lot of people kind of bash on the second and third one, but I think that they're both incredible films and have their own specialties, their own style compared to the first and second one, where the third one's like a giant action set piece, and the first one really sets up this great world and these characters. And I think I just really enjoy all three of these films, and the characters are amazing. It's the best part of these. Probably my favorite Johnny Depp performances in his entire career, too.
Well, I mean, the guy got nominated for an Oscar for this, so it's one of his best performances. And he actually won the Screen Actors Guild Award for Best Actor in a film.
That's crazy to say if you're playing a drunken pirate and you win you get an Oscar nomination.
Exactly. And the reason why I think Pirates is so successful, because these movies have made $4.5 billion, all of them, the whole franchise, which is this is like Marvel money we're talking about. So they're huge hits, and I think it's because this is the closest thing we've had since Indiana Jones. In terms of the adventure, action-adventure, swashbuckling, exploration, fun family movie that anyone can go to and enjoy. And I think they really capture the style and the tone of those Spielberg films, unlike anyone has before. And the adventure and exploration genre is pretty much dying out, and this is probably one of the last shining examples of it.
Yeah, I think it's going to come back with, what's the movie that they're making?
Not Tom Holland?
Yeah, the Tom Holland one.
It's a video game.
It's based on a video game. Yeah. Hopefully that's a good movie, and they can build a franchise off that, because I love adventure movies. And the thing that I loved so much about Pirates when it first came out is it was fresh. It was something we'd never really seen before. Obviously, it's based on the ride at Disneyland, which I've actually been on. It's a really cool ride. It's super fun. Yeah, it's really eerie and scary and fun, just like the movies.
Is it animatronic?
Animatronic puppets kind of everywhere, and you're just on a boat slowly going through water to see all these cool different scenes. But they've updated it since, and they put Jack Sparrow on it because I think it was made in the 1960s originally.
Yeah, it's been there for decades, and I mean, since it's a Disney property, it was only a matter of time until a film came out of it, and I think they were waiting for technology to catch up to it, because I think they always wanted to go supernatural with it. And then in the late 90s, they were like, okay, we can greenlight this and make something.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it was so fresh. It was a new take on pirates, because up until Curse of the Black Pearl, pirates were not a cool commodity. They weren't popular. We had seen
non-existent, really.
We'd seen it most previous in Muppets, Treasure Island,
and Peter Pan. That's
Peter Pan, yeah, but that was even earlier. And then Cutthroat Island, which was 1995, I think, and that wasn't even that good of a movie. But I mean, Muppet Treasure Island's fantastic, but that was 1996, and this is 2003 with Curse of the Black Pearl. So pirates were a dead character basically in terms of popular entertainment. And in Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, with Johnny Depp, obviously, as Jack Sparrow, really made them cool and interesting and a pop culture phenomenon. If you like our podcast and content and want to help support us, the best thing you can do is share our podcast with your movie friends and family. We're operating mostly word of mouth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, where you listen to podcasts. Leaving 5-star reviews is very beneficial, and we love reading the written ones. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast to get special perks.
In honor of this episode, we're going to do a very special Blu-ray giveaway. We will give away your favorite Pirates of the Caribbean movie. All you have to do to enter the contest is subscribe to our YouTube channel, or already be subscribed, and comment on the Pirates giveaway video your favorite Pirates of the Caribbean movie, 1 through 5, whichever one you guys like best. Put that comment on the video. If you win, we will send you that Blu-ray personally. And also, you have to think to historically portray pirates. They're horrible. They were very bad people. These are people who raped and pillaged and stole and killed and destroyed for their own benefit and greed. And they just traveled the seas, raiding every ship they could find. And so they did really heinous acts, and a lot of them were terrible people. So it's kind of like, how do you portray that makes them seem portrayed in a positive light? And what Disney did, I think, was they captured the tone of, you could say, the Peter Pan take on the pirates with Captain Hook and all the pirates on the ship, where they're obviously villains and villainous characters, but you still like them. They're a lot of fun, and they're more played for comedy than anything.
Yeah, and obviously Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow is the reason why all these films worked and have worked for the last 20 years almost.
Without a doubt.
And Johnny Depp is obviously one of Hollywood's most beloved and talented actors. He's had a stellar career, been nominated for 3 actors. Again, like you said,
3 Oscars.
What'd I say?
You got nominated for 3 actors.
I've been working all day.
You host a movie podcast.
Nominated for 3 Oscars, kid. 1 for Pirates, like you said. Never won one, but I'm sure Johnny could have won an Oscar at some point if he took more of those Oscar bait type roles.
You mean the roles that don't pay $20 million?
Yeah, but he's an actor who's built his career off the unusual. He does play normal looking guy. I mean, Donnie Brasco is an example of not like an eccentric character.
Plenty. Like the Rum Diaries, yeah.
But Johnny Depp, he's pulled off such a wide range of characters. I mean, we're talking Jack Sparrow, Sweeney Todd, Donnie Brasco, Willy Wonka, Edward Scissorhands, John Dillinger, Whitey Bulger, Grindelwald, the Mad Hatter, Ichabod Crane, Rango, George Jung, just to name a few. This guy can do pretty much anything on film as a character actor.
It's a great point, and he is one of the best actors of his generation, even though he doesn't get the awards recognition. But the thing with his performance in this film is, like you said, he makes Pirates. So Pirates would not have been as good of a movie without Jack Sparrow, and not just the character, but the way he portrayed him. And the ironic thing is that this script was originally written for Hugh Jackman. It was specifically written for Hugh Jackman to star in it, and they wanted Jack Sparrow to be like the typical hero. He's strong and confident and handsome, and
like Will Turner.
Yeah, Will Turner, and has like good morals, and that's who Jack Sparrow was on the page, and that's who he was written for. But for some reason, I think it was scheduling with. I think they were planning to make X-Men movies faster than they were planning. Hugh Jackman couldn't star in this film, so they cast Johnny Depp because he was such a great actor and he was a big star already. And what happened was Johnny Depp began performing in the film, and after several weeks, as the producers and studio were looking at the dailies, which is the footage they've shot already, they began getting very worried about the performance because, I mean, as we all know, Jack Sparrow, he has a very specific mannerism, the way he talks. It's almost like he's like constantly kind of drunk and loopy. And if anyone knows, Jack Sparrow is Johnny Depp is very good friends with Keith Richards, the famed guitarist of the Rolling Stones. And this is how he actually moves and speaks, and all of his mannerisms, and this is how he, similar to how he dresses. And Johnny Depp based Jack Sparrow on Keith Richards, and so it's pretty much an impression of Keith Richards.
But also at the same time, just like how Pirates, this franchise and these movies were so new, his performance as a pirate and just in general, this was such an original performance for a character. We never seen anything like this hilarious, drunkenly mischievous, also highly intelligent and selfish, hilarious character. It had never been done like this before, and especially with pirates. Like you said, pirates are always their history is horrible.
Yeah,
and that's usually how they're portrayed.
So it's not that it hadn't been done like that before. It's the hero had never been portrayed like that. The lead hero of a movie, and so Disney hated his performance, and they were like, "You need to change this up and go back to the confident hero we were planning," and that's written on the page because he did so much improvisation and they were writing scenes during the day. And then Gore Verbinski, the director, and Johnny Depp, like, they stuck to their guns, and they're like, this is what we're doing. We think it's going to really work. And so Disney finally gave in and let them complete the film with this performance. And ironically, the performance is why the movie is so good. Jack Sparrow makes the movie. People go to these movies to see Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. If there's a Pirates movie without Jack Sparrow in it, it's not going to be good.
Well, they're going to be making them soon, so I think Margot Robbie is a very talented actress, and hopefully she'll be able to, I'm sure she will be able to carry the franchise on her shoulders, and hopefully they do a great job with her character and what they end up doing with those movies.
Yeah.
But it will be weird and odd to watch a Pirates movie. We'll go see it, obviously. It'll be weird to see one without Johnny Depp because, like you said, he is the reason you go to see the Pirates movies because it's Johnny Depp. It's Jack Sparrow. We're talking the first one. It's 145 minutes. That's over 2 hours of a movie of a franchise we've never seen before. I don't care how good your movie is or the script is. If it's 2 hours and 25 minutes, if you don't have like a great actor in it that's giving you something to look forward to every scene, you're going to get a little tedious and bored with the entire story.
And for someone who's made so many iconic and interesting and very unique characters throughout his career, I would argue that Jack Sparrow is his most iconic and the one he will be most famous for.
Oh, of course. He's been in 5 movies as the character, so it's obviously most iconic.
It also made him a very lucrative person.
Oh, man. What is he pulling in, like 50 per after the first 2 or 3?
Yeah, he gets back end, man. The guy makes bank.
It's insane. Did you know that Johnny Depp refuses to watch any of the movies that he actually acts in? And he has admitted that it is regrettable that he's missed out on performances of his close friends in films that he's with them in, but he believes that seeing his own performance would harm him in his future career in roles, and he argues that the roles are done for him with each project when he's finished filming.
Yeah, some actors are like that. Daniel Day-Lewis is like that. Joaquin Phoenix is like that. They don't like seeing themselves on camera because I think for them, they would probably critique themselves and lose confidence. And maybe there's insecurities with seeing what their performances are like. And people like that, they won't even see. They won't even look at the footage in Video Village. Like on set, they have like what's called a Video Village, where they have screens recording, and then the producers and filmmakers and actors can look at what they just did and be like, oh, we can do this instead, or make adjustments and tweaks to the next take of the scene. But he doesn't like to do that either. He doesn't like looking at himself at all on camera.
Adam Driver's like that too. Adam Driver has like a intense phobia of watching himself on camera, and like even gets very uncomfortable when he
never
talks
seen
about
the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, so he's never actually watched any of the movies he's in either.
Yeah, but I think that for Johnny Depp and guys like that, like Daniel Day, I think that for them, the experience of acting and portraying the character that's not themselves is what they get out of it more than anything.
And Nick Cage was actually one of the main people in Johnny Depp's life who convinced him to pursue acting despite trying to make it in music, because we all know Johnny Depp's a talented guitarist as well. And after smaller roles in Johnny's young acting career, he eventually landed the role of Tommy Hansen on the popular TV show 21 Jump Street, which basically led to his stardom.
Oh, yeah. And I think his first movie was the Freddy Krueger movie, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, but again, smaller role, small movie.
Role,
and then Cry Baby was a big movie role for him.
That was his big leading film role, yeah. And he just exploded in the 90s, and I think he'll go down as one of the most iconic actors, and I think he's very beloved among fans. His fans
hardcore
are some of the most fervent fans there are of anyone.
And despite all the controversy he's going through right now in his life, which we won't touch on because we're just going to talk about his movies and his career, he still has intense fandom that support him despite what's going on in his personal life.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down Hollywood Boulevard, there's several people dressed up as all of his characters performing.
Real.
And the thing with his character that I love, aside from the performance itself, is the look of Jack Sparrow. I think it's a fantastic wardrobe. The dreads are cool, the facial hair, but also Johnny Depp wore contact lenses that pretty much acted as sunglasses for him because they shot so much in sunlight. And he even used a real pistol that was built in the 18th century.
Oh, that's cool.
The dirty teeth, the gringy face. He's got like the eyeliner. I think it's just a fantastic look for the character as well as his performance itself. Obviously, one of the other main leads of these films is Orlando Bloom, who absolutely exploded into Hollywood. We talked about Harrison Ford's gigantic several years in film, but Orlando Bloom had, you could argue, the best 6 years ever.
Oh, I have a list of it.
Yes, go ahead and say the list.
So few actors have had the run that Orlando Bloom had in the early 2000s and at such a young age for it too. And between 2001 and 2007, Orlando Bloom was in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Black Hawk Down, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Troy, Kingdom of Heaven, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, and Pirates of the Caribbean At World's End. This guy's acting career exploded, and so did his bank account for sure. Insane.
It's unbelievable to have those, because Lord of the Rings and Pirates were the biggest franchises at the time. It's not like now where there's several Marvel franchises and the Fast and Furious, and there's always a Batman franchise. Like, these were it. That's it. And Spider-Man, that was it. And ironically, it's amazing that his first ever movie role was as Legolas in Lord of the Rings. He actually was cast as Legolas while he was still in drama school as a young man.
That's wild. And I mean, Black Hawk Down, that's a great movie, smaller role. Troy had a big role in that too, and that's an awesome movie. And then Kingdom of Heaven, these are all big productions that this guy, he was 24 in 2001, I think. So
that's
he's
nuts.
21. In 2001, he was 24 for Lord of the Rings Fellowship, and then your entire 20s, you're becoming one of the biggest stars on the planet. And he was a huge draw for fans to go see the first Pirates
ladies
movies.
love him.
Yeah, the ladies love Orlando Bloom.
He's a handsome guy.
Johnny Depp is beloved too, but the ladies love Legolas, and guys like Legolas. That's a good-looking man.
Yeah, and also what's even crazier about that age, so he was 24 when he started in Lord of the Rings. Keira Knightley was only 17 when she filmed Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So she was a kid. She was very young. And imagine being 17 years old and being the lead in this $200 million movie.
Well, not even that. Keira Knightley, incredibly talented actress, and she's had experience on big budget films. She was in Star Wars: The Phantom Menace at age 14, and she plays Queen Amidala's double in the film, which is insane. So she, at such an incredibly young age, already had experience on massive films.
Yeah, it's a fun fact. So whenever Queen Amidala is not in the queen garb and makeup, it's always Keira Knightley in place for her. And Natalie Portman, I think, was like 18 or 17 in that movie, and still Keira Knightley at 14 still looked old enough. But I think Keira Knightley is extremely underrated as an actor because she's been in so many costume dramas and because she's been in the Pirates movies, I think she's been kind of like typecast as a certain kind of actor.
Like Shakespearean or ancient action.
But I think she has a lot more range than people give her credit for. And we'll see. I mean, she's still very young, but we'll see her as she tackles more roles over the next couple of decades. But she is hands down one of the most talented actors of her generation.
Yeah, I really like her in that movie that she's in with Mark Ruffalo, where she's a struggling musician.
Oh, yeah. That's a good movie.
And so, I mean, just a small, simple performance, but she's an incredible actor. And her character, Elizabeth Swann, goes through so much transformation throughout this original trilogy. And I mean, she starts off as this like daughter of a governor, aristocrat life, and her marriage is predetermined, and she has to live by the certain rules of this aristocracy. But then she eventually, throughout the 3 movies, becomes like a captain of a pirate ship at some point.
She becomes like a pirate lord.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it is a great transformation, and I think one of the strengths of the trilogy is the romance between Will and Elizabeth, because it does work. Some actors, you see them on screen, they don't really have the chemistry, and you don't even care if they get together or not half the time. But with these two, because their love is oftentimes forbidden, especially in the first film, or they're pulled away from each other like the second film, and then the events of what's happening in the conflict prevent them from ever getting closer again, you really do vie for them to get together eventually in the end, which they do. And when they do finally become a couple and they get married, it is a tragedy, because what ends up happening is Will becomes the new captain of the Flying Dutchman, and he can only see her once every 10 years. So it becomes a tragic love, and tragic love can be a very powerful thing in a film.
And to save the marriage for the 3rd movie, insane action set piece climax, which we'll get to later on when we talk about At World's End.
Well, that's one of the strengths of the movies are the action set pieces.
Yeah, and so we got a lot of great practical filmmaking in these movies. Specifically, the first one is probably the most practical, because At World's End has a lot of incredible CGI that we've never seen before, especially like the maelstrom that they're all in the middle, and at the end, that last 30 minutes of that movie is absurd.
This episode is sponsored by MoviePosters.com, the #1 site to get your posters online today. Don't go to Amazon.com, guys. I know it's free shipping, but the quality is not even close to MoviePosters.com. If you've seen our set, it is decked out with all these amazing posters sent to us from MoviePosters.com. These are high quality. They look amazing. They're the highest quality printing you can do. They have every size. They have every movie. The framing, backlighting, anything you want from a poster, they got it, and they can do it. If you love movies, if you love TV shows, there's no better way to express that love than to buy some movie posters for your house, for your bedroom, for a friend, or for a significant other. Go to movieposters.com and use our coupon code Raiders15 to get 15% off your order today. Again, Raiders15 from movieposters.com. Well, so that in particular, so you take a movie like that where the climax with all these storylines coming together and all these characters are battling, and then you put it next to something like Captain America Civil War, where same thing, all these great characters and storylines are converging, but they're fighting in an empty airport.
Yeah.
So it kind of doesn't have the same stakes or drama as something like this, where it's just this unbelievable set piece, and it's stunning, and it's long, and it's endlessly entertaining. So I think that Gore Verbinski, the director, I can't say enough about how talented of a filmmaker he is and how smart of a blocker he is in terms of how he stages his scenes in his films. And he previously made The Ring before this, and he's made things like The Lone Ranger and Rango. Very, very talented director, and the set pieces are a showcase for that.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk about that in a little bit, because that's one of my favorite scenes, it's more than a scene in the entire franchise. Yeah. And then in addition to Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, we have amazing supporting cast villains. I mean, we have Jeffrey Rush as Barbossa. We have Bill Nye as
Flying Dutchman. Davy Jones.
And who else is there?
Well, I just want to say about Barbossa.
Oh, yeah.
For Barbossa, I think Jeffrey Rush, he perfectly captured what you think a pirate captain would be.
Yeah,
he's like, when I imagine a captain of a pirate ship, it's Captain Barbossa. He's got that laugh, he's got the beard, eventually gets the stump leg, the wooden leg, and I think he's so perfect for this role.
And then Bill Nye is Davy Jones, and this is such a cool, interesting character, because I think this is 2006, and we're starting to see a lot of advanced CGI at this point. And his look, the monster look of his squid monster face is phenomenal. The design is so creative, where like his tentacles are his beard, or where his beard
And they
would
even
be.
like worked like hands.
Yeah, and he didn't have any. All they did was have darkened makeup under his eyes, and they had the dots on his face.
Yeah,
and
he's wearing a motion capture suit, so it's funny to see set photos of everyone in their amazing pirate wardrobe, and then Bill Nye's
just dots on his face.
Yeah, dots his face in a leotard.
It's incredible how much went into the CGI, and it still holds up so well today.
Honestly, it looks like it was made this year. That's how effective it is.
It's phenomenal.
It looks fantastic, and they shot it really intelligently with like a lot of low light, and he's in sunlight rarely, but it looks fantastic. And in terms of the production itself, for the first film, obviously it's the first film in the franchise. There was still a big budget, 150 million, but they didn't have enough money to build these ships for real.
Yeah.
So they did build three main ships, but they basically built skeletons of the ships, so they weren't finished. And obviously, you could see like modern pieces of construction for how it was built. Then they CGI'd the bodies of the ships on afterwards. So they did actually build the ships, but not completely.
And then we have some more villains, including Jack Davenport, who plays Norrington, and he's the person. He's like a captain, I think, or
he's a captain. Yeah,
he's a captain in the British Navy, and he's supposed to marry Elizabeth Swann.
Yeah, he's pining for her.
And so he actually goes through multiple transformations in this trilogy, where
you could say he goes through the most transformations.
Yeah, him and Elizabeth actually go through the most, because he pretty much loses his entire life after the first film, and then ends up trying to get it back in Dead Man's Chest, try to retain his reputation, because he kind of becomes sort of a pirate, despite the fact that he hates pirates so much.
Yeah, it's ironic because by the second and third film, he becomes a pirate to become a captain again. So the irony is really great. And then his superior, Beckett, is a fantastic villain for the second two films. I think he's an unbelievable character. And the actor, he's been in a ton of stuff. I can't remember his name, but he absolutely destroys this role. And he just seems like a incredible leader and very foreboding villain for both films.
And then we have Calypso, who's a really fascinating character, because she basically is a dual character in disguise, kind of like Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins, where she's really, at first, she's Tia Dalma, who we think is like this pirate voodoo sorceress,
like
that's
gypsy-ish,
helping them out.
Yeah.
But she ends up being Calypso, and she has a lot of great story and symbolism with Davy Jones, and they have a kind of a forbidden love in a way, and they have
a history.
They have a history where Davy Jones was this like lost person at sea who fell in love with the sea and fell in love with Calypso, and they have this doomed love where Davy Jones betrayed Calypso, which is what caused him to be cursed.
She cursed him for betraying the power she gave him.
And so that's a really interesting like love fable of the sea that we get to see play out in the final film.
Well, that's what's so great about this franchise, is because we get to see the characters of great mythology and legend, things like Calypso and Davy Jones and Blackbeard eventually, and like the Fountain of Youth and mermaids and the On Stranger Tides. So I think the franchise provides the opportunity for bringing in famous lore from all parts of the world. On Stranger Tides was actually adapted from a novel that someone wrote. So I think the franchise you can fill it with so much stuff, because it's pretty much you can have anything in this franchise, which makes it so much fun. You can't talk about pirates without mentioning Hans Zimmer's music for this movie. And same as John Williams, Hans Zimmer has this incredible knack for being able to create iconic themes for iconic movies that stand the test of time. And the Pirates movies are some of my favorite music to listen to. The themes are unbelievable. He captured the energy, the tone, the style of the film. But ironically, he's not credited on the first film. Do you know the story?
Yeah, Klaus Badelt is credited in Pirates of the Caribbean as the composer and conductor of the first film, because he was hired by Hans Zimmer to write the music for the first film of the Disney franchise. Although Zimmer did write the melodies and ideas for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, he says in a couple days, but he enlisted Klaus Badelt's help.
So what happened was, the reason for this is because he had worked with Gore Verbinski on The Ring. Hans Zimmer did the music for that. If anyone likes Hans Zimmer, listen to his score for The Ring. It's fantastic. And so when Gore Verbinski came to him with Pirates, Hans Zimmer was legally obligated to not make music for 6 months. He had just done The Last Samurai, and in his contract it stipulated that after you finish, you have a 6 month window where you can't make music for any other movie. And this is something they put into contracts to prevent composers from like going on to another project, and then maybe that first film needs more music, and then that composer's busy with their new project. So it keeps composers available. And what happened was Hans Zimmer was like, I want to make the music for this movie, but I legally can't. And so, like you said, Hans Zimmer made all of the main themes in literally one night. There's a story he says where he got drunk with his friends in his studio, and they stayed up all night, and he just played all of the themes on a keyboard until like 4 a.m, and they recorded all these amazing themes that he wrote. And then, so they had the themes, and they needed a composer to make the score. And so, like you said, he hired his protege, Klaus Badelt, to act as the composer of the film, but Hans Zimmer was there for pretty much every day of the recording session. So even though he's not credited, Hans Zimmer did make the music for Pirates.
So it's kind of like George Lucas with Empire
Exactly.
and Return of the Jedi,
Yeah.
where he wasn't the director, but he was really the director.
Exactly. Yeah, perfectly said.
And yeah, Hans's music to these films are fantastic, and the themes are there, and they're incredible. And also, the Pirates movies, I think their production design is absolutely phenomenal. The wardrobe, the set design, the makeup, the hair, it's all incredible. It's some of the best you'll ever see in cinema, especially at the time. And
100%.
So I love to give the crew so much credit in films like this, because it takes a lot of work to do what they do, especially a film based on water, and you're dealing with outdoor filmmaking. So it's a really tough job, and they knocked it out of the park in these movies.
Yeah, in terms of the production design, it can be pretty weird and scary and dark and grimy, and these are kids' movies as well. So I think it was really smart of Disney to let Gore Verbinski act out his true vision for the films, which he doesn't play it safe. It can be like disturbing. It's like the Davy Jones Pirates. They're disturbing to look at. They're scary creatures, and so they really pulled no punches for a PG movie, and they kept it as strange as possible, which I really loved.
I mean, there are some real horror elements to these movies, and especially like the Black Pearl when the ghost pirates are walking underwater. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I was shitting my pants when I was watching that.
I remember we went to see a movie with Dad, and that was they released that teaser trailer before the movie, whatever we saw.
Scary.
And it blew my mind seeing the pirates walking under the water, because that was a teaser. It was like just the pirates like walking underneath that ship in the shadows and the moonlight, and I was just blown away by that. So it was amazing special effects for the day.
The first film of the franchise is Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, released in 2003, directed by Gore Verbinski, written by Ted Elliott, Terry Rossio, Stuart Beattie, and Jay Wolpert. This film stars Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, Jack Davenport, and Jonathan Pryce. With a budget of $140 million, this film had a box office of $654 million worldwide. Will Turner, an orphaned blacksmith, teams up with Captain Jack Sparrow, a savvy pirate, in order to save his kidnapped love, Elizabeth Swann, from Barbossa and his undead crew of pirates.
What I think the first Pirates does really well is this amazing blend between adventure, horror, comedy, and romance. It's pretty hard to pull off. I mean, I can't think of another movie except for Indy that can pull it off, because you get a lot of these elements in the first act of the film where, first of all, we're introduced to these amazing characters. Set design's fantastic, and then I love the opening of the film where we get to see Will and Elizabeth when they're kids, and Will washes up on that boat and is saved by her, and it's a great introduction. And the elements of this film of horror are really prevalent at the climax of the first act when the pirates begin invading the island. And I just think that Gore Verbinski did a phenomenal job of not rushing the first act, rolling out the characters slowly, really showing us the world, getting to know each person on their own, and then convulging everything.
Yeah, if you think about it, Elizabeth Swann might be the main character of these films. I mean, she's the first one, really, and we have the opening flashback to present day of her and that great cut of her as a child and as an adult. And she's the one that is involved with every single character in the film from the entire beginning of the movie, especially when she finds Will Turner.
Good point.
And the curse, again, on the horror element, the curse is so fun and interesting. And like, again, we've never seen anything like this. This pirate curse and all these pirates that are undead, and they're looking for the final medallion of their 882 pieces of gold treasure that they were cursed with. And then we're introduced to Will Turner, and then we're introduced to the infamous Jack Sparrow, and this iconic character, and he's so fun. He's ridiculous. His opening shot in the movie is he's just riding a sinking ship onto a dock.
He kind of times it perfectly too.
How much more epic of an opening can you get after he sails past hung pirates? So we get a lot of great exposition without being told what's going on.
And the thing with Jack, and that's the perfect example of it, half the time Jack seems like he's like a bumbling idiot who doesn't really know what he's doing, and he's always drunk. And then half the time he seems like he's a perfect, amazing strategist who always has a step ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect example of his ship is sinking, but you know what? He timed it perfectly to take a step onto that dock right when it sinks. So I mean, he goes hand in hand with that, and we also get the first escape that Jack Sparrow has. His famous, what I think one of the most famous things about Jack is how he escapes situations, and he's always swinging around on ropes like Spider-Man and parkouring all over the place. And we get that first initial chase from the military men. After that iconic line where the captain is like, "You've got to be the worst pirate I've ever heard of," and he goes, "You have heard of me, though."
It's so funny. Yeah, he's like a Houdini escape artist, and there's like a genius to his aloofness in a way. Like if he wasn't always drunken, like maybe he's like one of the smartest people you ever meet. But because he's always hammered, it only comes out in glimpses. But also you get his hysterical mannerisms at the same time. And I love the opening with Elizabeth specifically, where she's we're introduced to her life in this aristocratic environment, and she has that corset, which is kind of like a metaphor for how suffocating her life is and how she's being controlled by her mother. And obviously she has the secret of this pirate medallion that she hasn't told anyone about ever, and she's really the key to the plot of this moving forward. Yeah,
she drives it forward, and the key, this piece of gold is what brings the situation to this bay. And I love the introduction of Will, because he's that hero. He kind of reminds me of like Jon Snow, where he always tries to do the right thing. He came from nothing, and he's just trying to make his way. And he doesn't see himself ever accomplishing anything, hence the reason why, even though he's in love with Elizabeth, he doesn't think he'll ever be worthy of her, because he's just a swordsmith, and she's a governess.
Blacksmith.
They make swords, but yeah, he's a blacksmith, you're right. And so I think you can compare him to Jon Snow in that way. And I really love the first time Will and Jack meet, when Jack is evading the authorities, and Will, being the good person he is, stops him. And there's that just fantastic sword fight in the blacksmith room, and they're jumping around, and it reminds me of like the Three Musketeers fights. And it was just so much fun. I remember being a kid watching this first sword fight and really having the time of my life in the theater.
And Jack, we think he's just a nefarious character, which most of the time he is, but he really does have a heart somewhere deep down, because after he escapes everybody and he gets away, he's about to steal that ship from the British Navy. And instead of stealing the ship, Elizabeth Swann falls down into the ocean. He goes to save her instead of steal the ship, so he could get away clean. But he goes to save her, which basically her falling in the ocean, we all know, makes the medallion basically become a beacon for the pirates to come find the medallion. But
it's a great script.
It shows you that Jack really at some point had a heart. There's still some of it in there deep down.
Well, that's the thing with Jack, is even though half the time his intentions are often selfish and nefarious and criminal, he does always eventually make the right decisions, and he does always try to eventually do what he can to save his friends and aid his friends and family. And so this is the first example of that. And also you need something like this to make him an empathetic character, because if he doesn't do this, I don't think Jack Sparrow has the lovability, because he's funny and he's a pirate, but like there's no heart to him. And so this allows the audience to connect to the character, because he puts his life on the line to save Elizabeth. So it's actually a very important moment for his character.
And one of the best parts of the first act is we don't really see the barbaric savagery of pirates yet. We see the burning ship, that wreckage with the pirate flag that Will Turner's washed up on in the beginning of the film. But then we get Jack Sparrow, who's like, is this what all the pirates are like? But then we get the attack on the port city, the port town of the pirates, once they find out, they can find out where the medallion is, and it's intense. It's an intense battle there. They're merciless. There's thieves. They're plunderers.
For a Disney movie, it's pretty violent.
It's pretty gory too. And this is obviously where Jack escapes too, because Will helps him escape to go track down Elizabeth, because Elizabeth gets taken because Barbossa thinks that she is the
Bootstrap Bill's child.
Yeah, the child of Bootstrap, and they need her blood to complete the ritual to reverse their curse.
Yeah, it's pretty much a big misunderstanding. And then we get this.
It's an understatement.
And so we get. It's always great. A movie can work really well, especially an ensemble, when you have two characters who are complete opposites and they have to work together for the same goal. And you have that in Will and Jack, because they constantly clash, and they couldn't be more different from each other. Although deep down, Will has the pirate within him.
Yeah,
in a way,
because we learned that his father is Bootstrap Bill, who was on the Black Pearl, and Will eventually will follow in those footsteps of being a pirate, despite them. We see a lot of characters who hate pirates who end up learning to work with them and like amicably become part of the same crews as them.
Yeah, and then while Elizabeth is with the pirates, this is when we finally get to see, because we just got a hint of the skeletons in the moonlight with the hand in the jail cell with Jack. But it's when Elizabeth is on Barbossa's ship, the Black Pearl, and first she's in that dining room with him, and he reveals himself as a skeleton in moonlight, and then she goes onto the board of the ship, and every pirate is just this terrifying, horrific, skeletal pirate in the moonlight, and it's a fantastic scene, and it adds, like I said, that horror element to the film, which is why I think this film is so entertaining and so memorable, because it blends not just adventure, action, comedy, and romance, but really great horror.
Yeah, like when we have those scenes where there are skeletons in that cave with all their gold that they're collecting, and we see all the gold in the chest and the moonlight shining, and it's really cool. And then the part where Jack becomes a skeleton for a little bit because he steals a medallion as well too. So this is where Jack is kind of always a step ahead of villains, and this is even more apparent when we'll get to at World's End how far ahead he actually thinks, and how he is working everything out before it happens. And one of my favorite aspects of Jack Sparrow, and that we'll see throughout all three films, is his compass. And Jack Sparrow's compass comes up and up again, and it's used and there's a scene where people make fun of his compass because it's always shaking and it's not pointing north ever like it should, because Jack's compass was given to him by Calypso, I believe, or a voodoo sorceress.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was her specifically.
And the compass points the direction of what the holder truly wants more than anything in life. Mm-hmm. And so it's how he finds the Black Pearl. It's how they're able to find whatever they're after, the dead man's chest later on. So it's one of my favorite aspects of the character.
And also, I think the reason why sometimes it can be hard to read is because I think the ambiguity in Jack, because he wants to be a pirate more than anything, and he wants selfish things, but then sometimes he can't help but want to do whatever he can to save his friends and help for the betterment of everyone else. So I think that compass also represents the moral conundrum within himself of just being a ruthless pirate and then being a good man as well.
And we eventually find out that Will Turner obviously is the descendant of Bootstrap Bill, and it's his blood that is needed to lift the curse of the Black Pearl that's on this crew. And this is where Jack stealing that medallion comes into play, where because he stole the medallion, it's not until him and Will combine their medallions with Will's blood to drop into the chest. At the same time, Jack Sparrow shoots Barbossa in the chest, making him mortal again and killing him. And it's a great twist ending.
And the climax of this film, it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot smaller than the other two films, and I think I like that because the scale is a lot smaller. There's less at stake. It's literally just the pirates and the situation. And I really like that about this film. The personal quality to the climax and the conflict, and it's so much fun. The sword fight's great. The music's great. The ending's fantastic, and I just like everyone else, I adored these characters, and it's a fantastic conclusion, especially the ending when Will helps Jack escape the noose, and they have that great chase scene out of the city, and they both jump over the cliff, and Elizabeth chooses Will over the captain. And it's just the romanticism, the action, adventure, they all culminate in a fantastic ending. And like me and everyone else who saw it, we wanted more because it was so good, and we were dying to see the second film. Next up, we have Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, released July 7th, 2006. Directed by Gore Verbinski, written by Ted Elliott, Terry Rossio, Stuart Beatty, and Jay Wolpert. This film stars Johnny Depp, Bill Nighy, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, and Jack Davenport. This film grossed $1.06 billion on a budget of $225 million. Jack Sparrow's past comes back to haunt him. Davy Jones, owner of the infamous Flying Dutchman, is eager to collect Jack's soul. In order to avoid this, Jack must race to find Jones's coveted chest before others find it for their own agenda.
This is an incredibly underrated movie, and it's incredibly successful as well, because this was like the first movie that it's common occurrence now where these massive films have enormous debut weekends, but Pirates opened in at $135 million which it was the first fastest film to make $100 million on an opening weekend.
Yeah,
which is
I think the fastest
absurd.
to $1 billion as well.
Yeah, so it's absurd for being 2006 for them to accomplish this, because it shows that there was such a thirst to see the sequel to the original film, and that these are new characters that we're in love with. And I like this movie a lot. I know it gets a lot of flack. The last two do, but this is underrated as hell. The production design is fantastic, and what's great about this movie is they increased the stakes, they increased the goals, and the plot's more emotional, and so all these characters have more of a drive, which makes the plot so much better.
And on top of that, they all have the same goal. So I mentioned like a couple episodes ago, a movie is great when both the protagonist and the antagonist have the same goal, because they battle for that goal. And in this film, it becomes an ensemble pretty much. There's like 4 or 5 major storylines that are happening, and each person, they're all vying for the heart of Davy Jones, and for their
specifically the chest,
which has Davy Jones' heart in it, for their own specific reasons. And so now we have all these converging plots vying for the same end, which is fantastic, and it creates a great conflict throughout the film, and that's why this plot is so good. I think that this movie is super underrated. The sequels are actually very good. If you give them a second viewing, and they've aged really well, and they're a lot of fun. They like you said, they increased the size, they built on the world, added new characters, and they made the stakes much higher. And on top of that, both Dead Man's Chest and At World's End were actually filmed at the same time. They was filmed as a back-to-back movie, so it was pretty much one giant project. Same thing with Lord of the Rings. And so they knew how they were going to end in At World's End. So I think maybe not finishing a full story is the reason why some people don't like it, but I don't mind it as the penultimate episode, the like in-between of the first and third. And I think this movie is just flat out a lot of fun.
Yeah, and just to touch on like what you just said, how you have all these different characters all with the same goal. It's very similar to what we saw with Avengers and Infinity War and Endgame, where all these characters are all after the Infinity Stones, and they're a combination of characters. They're heroes, they're anti-heroes, they're straight up villains. There's some people who kind of teeter on those lines, but they're all chasing the same goal. All complex, unique storylines that are somehow connected in different ways, but also not connected at all. And it's a race or a quest against the clock. And this movie, kind of like Jack Sparrow is always in these situations of a ticking clock. This movie specifically, ticking clock the entire time. This movie, it doesn't take a break.
And this film has 2 really great villains. So first we have Beckett, who ends up being, we learn the superior to Davenport, who's now become like a pirate in a way. And then we also have Davy Jones himself. And like I said earlier, we get to add these legends and these mythological characters of lore and history into this franchise because of its inclusivity of these kinds of stories. And I think Davy Jones was a great choice for the ultimate villain of the franchise. And like we said earlier, fantastic technological design of this creature. And I think the Flying Dutchman is so famous. I think I remember him mostly from SpongeBob, the episode with the Flying Dutchman. You're good. You're good. But I think he's a fantastic character, and special effects look amazing. And I think with this film, they really upped the horror and the darkness. Like his entire crew. It's like very disturbing to see these characters, and it's pretty scary. Some of the fight sequences and action sequences, they're pretty intense. And then also we get the Kraken. The famous Kraken from Greek mythology is in this film, and I think it's a great addition to the franchise.
Yeah, so we have a lot of powerful opposing forces all pulling in the same direction to achieve one goal, and it makes it such an investing worthy film to watch and to stay tuned for, even though how long it is. And this film, we also are introduced to Talia, who we end up learning is Calypso, and she's basically a voodoo priestess who at the end of the film kind of shelters the pirates to be continued for the next in the franchise. And we also learn of Davy Jones and his Dead Man's Chest, which holds his heart, which is Talia tells him is his biggest and really only weakness, and it's locked away in that chest. And in order to basically beat Davy Jones and prevent their enslavement onto his crew and force work on his crew, they have to find the chest and steal his heart in order to gain control over Davy Jones.
Well, everyone wants the heart for different reasons.
Yeah.
So Beckett wants the heart in order to take over the seas and end piracy. And then Will wants the heart in order to save his father from Davy Jones' crew.
Well, he originally wants it to save Elizabeth,
But
but then
he
it
meets
changes.
his father.
Yeah, then it changes to save his father.
And Jack wants the heart to save himself from being taken down by Davy Jones. And then Davy Jones obviously wants the heart to protect himself.
Because it's his heart.
Yes. So everyone wants the heart for a different reason, but they all have the same goal, just with different intentions. That's what makes it so good. And Will and Elizabeth, you want them to be together, but again, the forces and conflicts of the movie prevent it from happening. And unfortunately, I think this film has the weakest interpretation of Elizabeth Swann. She kind of becomes a bit of a passive character in this film because she's the only person in the film that isn't trying to get the heart for her own reasons. I think that they kind of made a mistake in this part where she became just a secondary character. She becomes very important in the third film, but in this film, everyone else is trying to get the heart, and she's just kind of along for the ride. So I think they kind of missed the mark with her on this.
I actually disagree. I think she's actually got a lot of dimensions in this film, and it may not look like she's a memorable, or may look like she's a passive character, like you said, because she doesn't really have a spoken goal to get the chest, but her goal is to save Will, and she achieves that goal eventually, or tries to, by she's the one who finds the chest. She's the one that she wants the chest to save Will, so that's her goal, to get the chest. She fights off Davy Jones' crew. She's one of the the only characters in the movie that commits a lot of different crimes, so she's more of a pirate than the pirates in the movie. And there's also, I think, a lot of misconceptions about her character in the movie in terms of the compass. When she holds the compass and it points at Jack, people think that there's this odd sexual tension between this love triangle between Jack, Elizabeth, and Will, when really it's not that at all. She's using Jack to get Will, to save Will, because when she holds the compass, it points at Jack, because what she wants most in life is Will, and the only way to get Will back is with Jack, because Jack told her that he's the only one that can save Will. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about her character, but she really does have multiple dimensions in this film, like the other characters who are after the chest.
No, yeah, you definitely have a good point. She does have a lot to do, and she even more so, she has the most impact on Jack's life, because she's the one who tricks Jack into being chained onto the boat and taken under by the Kraken, because she knew that the Kraken was after him, and she had to stop him to save everyone else. So she ends up saving everyone by binding Jack to the ship himself.
She also is one of the most important characters because she's a voice of reason for everyone else, because everyone's fighting in this movie and bickering.
They're all immature children.
I mean, just to show you the 3-person sword fight at the end of the movie where Elizabeth's the only one trying to get them to stop acting like idiots basically the whole time. And I love that sword fight between Davenport, Jack, and Will, because it shows the strong desire and goals of these characters and how badly each of them wants the dead man's chest and Davy Jones' heart for different reasons.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Davenport wants the heart to give to Beckett
to get his reputation back,
to get reinstated. Yeah, so everyone has their own storylines. That's why it works so well, and it is a lot like Endgame, like you said. I never thought about that. It's very similar. I think they kind of maybe use this as inspiration.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because they did it really effectively in this movie.
It's a Disney movie, so they probably were like, hey, let's do something like this. It worked really well. And so I think that, that's a great example. And I guess you're right. Elizabeth does do a lot in this film. I just think that in the third film, she has a much more important role in the plot itself, I would say.
I think she does in both. It's just, I think it's underneath the surface of everything else that's going on. You have to look at it differently.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then also we learn about the curse of Davy Jones, and that whoever does if someone kills Davy Jones by stabbing his heart, they will be cursed to captain the Flying Dutchman indefinitely, and they will only be able to come up to resurface onto land once every 10 years. And so killing Davy Jones comes with a price.
But you also get immortality, which is enticing to Jack at the end of the third film.
But all in all, it's a fantastic sequel. I think if you aren't really a big fan of it, maybe give it a second chance, because I think it's a lot better than you might remember. It's got a great ending. I think it's a really great time, and it furthers the stories and events of these films and sets it up for a fantastic conclusion.
I think it might be the funniest one, too, of the three.
Like that big chase on the island.
And the Wheel of Fortune stuff. And Jack's just hilarious in this, when he's with the cannibals and he's tied up and he's trying to put the fire out. It's really funny and campy.
There's actually a lot, Gore Verbinski threw in a lot of Chaplin and Buster Keaton type action sequences and bits. And I think that they used a lot of silent film comedy with Jack in particular in this film.
Yeah, specifically when he's on the beach running away from the cannibals and he has that hilarious gaping run while they're all chasing after him.
It's all silent film stuff. Yeah. That's what they're doing. And it's the thing is that stuff still works. As you can tell, it's a contemporary movie, and the things they were doing almost 100 years ago are still funny. So comedy itself does it's this. We still find the same things funny. It's just the lens has changed.
Yeah. The final film in the trilogy, Pirates of the Caribbean: At World's End, released in 2007, directed by Gore Verbinski, written by Ted Elliott, Terry Rossio, Stuart Beattie, and Jay Wolpert. This film stars Johnny Depp, Bill Nighy, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, Jack Davenport, and Jeffrey Rush. With a budget of $300 million, this film had a worldwide box office of $960 million. Captain Barbossa, Will Turner, and Elizabeth Swann must sail off the edge of the map, navigate treachery and betrayal, find Jack Sparrow, and make their final alliances for one last decisive battle.
At World's End just makes the scope of the world so much bigger, and we finally get international. We go to China and we meet Chow Yun-fat's character, Captain Feng, and it's a great extension of the world. It gets so much bigger in this film. We get to see that there's a pirate council and there are pirate lords, and the idea and community of piracy is a lot bigger than we initially thought. If you think about just the Curse of the Black Pearl film, it's like, oh, there are probably just a few pirate ships in the ocean. But now we learn it's a gigantic community, and there are probably hundreds of pirate ships from every country. And I love the international quality that we get. It also adds a lot to the set design and the wardrobe, especially Keira Knightley's wardrobe in this film is fantastic. And I just love the expansion of the world and the world building of this film.
Yeah, the spectacle of the action in this film is immense, and it takes precedent in place over a lot of the storytelling because the final action set piece of this movie is phenomenal. But back on the opening real quick, I love so much because we have like all these scoundrel pirate groups kind of gathered together on the same goal of rescuing Jack Sparrow, because we forgot to mention that he basically ends the last film, Dead Man's Chest, where he's like getting eaten while fighting a sword by that giant monster. And then we learn that Jack Sparrow is actually in Davy Jones' locker. And so this is kind of a limbo that he's in, where we have these great interactions with Jack and kind of his inner conscience, which happens throughout the film. It's like mini versions of Jack, and we sometimes get 3 Jacks on screen at the same time, which is, I mean, we love Jack Sparrow. What's better than one Jack Sparrow? 2 or 3 Jack Sparrows on camera at the same time. And so it's so fun to watch him talk to himself.
Yeah, multiple Jacks. And so the driving force of the first act of this film is the pirates have banded together and voted that they're going to try and save Jack and bring him back in order to help them.
And also, Captain Fang, he believes that Elizabeth is this character Calypso.
He thinks the spirit of Calypso is within Elizabeth.
Yeah, and so we learn...
Another misunderstanding.
Which he eventually, once he dies, he actually leaves her in command of his ship, which is pretty wild. And then we also have Davy Jones is under the control of Beckett, because if you remember, the heart was given to Beckett at the end of the last film by Davenport. And so Beckett basically has Davy Jones kind of carrying out all of his deeds that he wants done, and like cleaning up the trash.
Yeah, piracy is not happening right now. They're very much under ruthless rule of Davy Jones now.
Yeah, he's making him shoot anyone who disobeys. He's making him sink other pirate ships. He's been ordered to kill the Kraken, which is his baby. So it's a hard thing for him to have to accept and do. But he has to do it. He's ordered to do it.
Like his baby?
Yeah, his baby.
He made that?
I mean, kind of looks like his face a little bit. So even Davy Jones at this point is under the control of someone else, which is super interesting to see, like someone in like normal society controlling all the pirates and controlling all these supernatural characters.
Yeah, that's why I think Beckett's such a great character, because he's so ruthless and he's a great leader, and he becomes immensely powerful, and he is commanding this supernatural being to carry out his deeds across the ocean. And so I think Beckett is a great adversary in this film. Not like the colorful adversary we're used to seeing in Pirates movies. Like we get Blackbeard and we get Javier Bardem and Dead Men Tell No Tales, just very colorful, visually stunning characters. But I think he's just more ruthless than any of them.
In this film, we learn a lot more about Davy Jones and his past and love relationship with Calypso. And Davy Jones was a human sailor who fell in love with Calypso, who's a sea goddess, and he was then
Calypso gave him the job of the Flying Dutchman, gotcha. But he used it nefariously and selfishly, and so then she cursed him.
Yeah, and so he was cursed to only return to shore every 10 years to see his love, and Davy Jones felt that Calypso betrayed him because she wasn't there when he came the first time, and so he basically betrayed Calypso himself, and heartbroken, and this enraged Davy Jones and turned the pirate brethren against her so that they could claim the sea for themselves, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then in this film, once again, Will and Elizabeth because their marriage was stopped in Dead Man's Chest. We want them to get together again, but Elizabeth actually takes on a great amount of responsibility in this film. Like you said, she's named Pirate Lord after Fang's death, and so it's still prevented from happening. But all of these great storylines and plots and these new characters, they're all converging into this great climactic third act of the film, which you could say is probably the best act of all of the films.
Well, before we get to that, can
Yeah.
we talk about the parlay scene that
Oh,
they're
the
all involved
parlay,
in,
yeah.
which is just so cool to
Yeah.
see these 6 characters all together. And this is where Beckett and Davy Jones swap Will for Jack, and then Barbosa also steals the piece of 8 from Jack too.
And Verbinski even shot it. It's like a Western where he keeps going from wides to like close-ups on their eyes. So
Yeah, the
it's
sides.
very, very much like a Sergio Leone kind of blocking and cinematography.
It's a
I
really
love
fun
it.
scene.
Yeah, it's really great.
To see all these huge characters in the movie just all facing off together.
Yeah, it must have been a fun day on set.
But then we have that epic action set piece, which is set off into a maelstrom storm, which is a giant whirlpool storm, because
By Calypso.
Calypso is told about the betrayal of Davy Jones, what really happened. She morphs into all those crabs, and she goes to the sea.
First she becomes giant on the ship.
Yeah, she's like 6 stories tall.
Yeah, she becomes a huge, like, it's like what's that movie, the old movie, like Attack of like the 100-foot
The 100-foot one, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And
Yeah.
then, so then she goes into the ocean, has all those crabs, and she creates this wild maelstrom. And then we have this epic sea battles, Armada battle, which you've never seen anything like this before. You've seen Armada battles before, you've seen Hurricane Storm movies before, but a maelstrom with an Armada battle is nuts. The Black Pearl versus the Flying Dutchman, and it literally it has everything in this sequence that you would need in an entire movie. It has action, has romance, has drama, comedy. Will and Elizabeth quickly marry before like the battle officially starts. It's insane.
They're like, now's not the time to do this. But it's great, and like I mentioned earlier, like a climax like maybe like Man of Steel, the fight with Zod in the city, and like I mentioned earlier, Captain America Civil War, where all these amazing characters are fighting, but they're in just like an empty airport. It's not dramatic, and it's underwhelming in a lot of ways. The fights are cool, but like
It's not as memorable.
it's not memorable. But with this, it's this gigantic whirlpool, and it's like it couldn't be more visually stunning, and it lasts a while. It's like its own little mini movie within the movie. There's a lot happening. It has its own storyline throughout and conflict, and I think it's just an unbelievable piece of action set piece design. It showed Gore Verbinski's. She really shown off his talents as not just a director, but a visual storyteller, because obviously not a lot of dialogue is happening, but it's all action, and in a lot of ways it's a little silent film. If you look at it, you could watch this without any audio and still understand what's happening.
But there's also still a lot of small character moments that they put in on purpose to keep you emotionally invested in this. It's a pretty long sequence, and there's a ton of big action happening, but lots of small cuts of the main characters and what's going on. Like obviously the quick wedding on the ship, but also we get Jack Sparrow in like all his glory. We see his cleverness. We see the things he does, like how he tricks Davy Jones to get an eye on the key to steal it, to cut it off his tentacles. We see that escapist side of him where he like cuts the rope and he swings up on the mast and like stands and lands on the top of the mast. He's like, oh my god, how did I do that? And so it's just this awesome form of Jack Sparrow in all his glory.
100%. And then Elizabeth gets her hands dirty too. She's fighting a lot of Davy Jones' crew on her own. She really holds her own, and like we said, she becomes a fully transformed character by this film, and she is a full-blown pirate and a warrior by this film. And I think, there obviously haven't been a lot of strong female characters in that point in time in Hollywood, and I think that Elizabeth Swann is a shining example of a really great female character, really getting rough and dirty with the boys.
And we have an awesome climax inside this giant action set piece where Jack gets a hold of Davy Jones' heart, and so he has the choice to either stab the heart and kill Davy Jones and assume the immortality and save his life and save the Black Pearl. And also, if he stabs the heart, Will Turner's going to die.
So what happened was Davy Jones gave Will a mortal wound. So Will was mortally wounded and he's dying. And so both Elizabeth and I almost call him Johnny, and Jack have to decide how to save Will's life. And so they end up coming with the idea of literally placing the knife in Will's hand, and they help him stab the wound without him really doing it, but they do it for him.
Yeah, so they let Will stab the heart, and this means Jack has to let go of the Black Pearl, which is all he's talked about.
It's all he's ever
3
wanted.
movies. It's all he's ever wanted. It's the only thing. It's the only thing he says he's cared about. And this is a massive character transformation because it shows that he really does care about Will. He cares about Elizabeth, and he cares about their marriage and their relationship. And so he sacrifices his life ambition and potentially his life, he could die, to save Will Turner.
Yeah, it's a great moment, and it saves Will's life because at first we're not sure if it did work because the ship sinks, and just when they're about to lose the battle from the to the British, the Flying Dutchman pops back up, and Will is the new captain, and he's like
reincarnated.
He's all clean and stuff. He looks great, and it's like, oh shit, Will's alive. And so we do. It really did work, and it's a great conclusion. But then also we learn very quickly that it's tragic because Will now is cursed by the Flying Dutchman to be its captain
forever, and he can only come back to shore every 10 years. And the movie ends, obviously, we kill Beckett, which is really, it's awesome. And then
it's a great scene, the slow motion, the destruction of his ship.
And then he and Elizabeth eventually have to say goodbye, and she's also pregnant, and Will gives Elizabeth a new chest, the same chest, but now his heart's inside of it. So his heart's inside the dead man's chest. And after the credits, Elizabeth and his son are waiting for Will to return. He eventually is on the top of the mast of the ship coming to say what up.
Yeah, he's got like, hey, what's up, baby?
And I love it. In the end, sets up more adventures for Jack, where now they're going to go after the Fountain of Youth. And so it's a great ending to these original 3 movies.
And then the most recent 2 in the franchise, the last film, it did end up ending their storyline, Will and Elizabeth, by, I don't know if you've seen it, but his son is one of the lead characters in the film. He pretty much plays Will. And eventually, throughout the story, they end up saving him from the curse. And so Will, at the end of that film, Will is reunited with Elizabeth at the end, and he's not cursed with the Flying Dutchman's curse anymore. So
I've seen it once.
It does have a happy conclusion for the couple by the end of the franchise so far. But I think this is, at the moment, we thought this would be the last one. And so I think it was a fantastic conclusion to, at the time, the trilogy. And it was a phenomenal movie. Again, it's one of the best adventure movies you can think of. It's a dying genre, like I said earlier, and no one has done it better than Pirates in the last 20 years.
And that concludes our Pirates of the Caribbean episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Raiders of the Lost podcast, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost podcast. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Listen to the audio format of Raiders of the Lost podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes every Monday and Thursday. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost podcast.